Now, back to Marquee Media Studio and the HaneyBiz Project with your host, Mark Haney.
Welcome back to the HaneyBiz Project, brought to you courtesy of Comstocks Magazine and California Backyard. I'm Mark Haney, and today I have the privilege of being joined by Kim Silvers, the founder and president of Silvers HR. How you doing, Kim?
Hi, Mark. I'm good.
Welcome back to the show. You were one of our first guests that we ever had on our entrepreneurial radio program. And you're back again sharing wisdom about entrepreneurship and about how to keep ourselves protected in the world of human resources. How do we do that these days? It's a complicated arena.
You know, it's really hard to be an employer, especially in California. And I think your comment about the best defense is a good offense is absolutely right in terms of employment here. Yeah. I feel like I mentioned earlier, much of my day is about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
A little rock and roll in there?
Mostly two out of three. But yeah, there's lots going on. And, you know, it used to be the outliers on either side. You know, the top 3% or the bottom 3% took up the majority of the manager's day. And now, you know, there's so much going on about sexual harassment, about the Me Too movement, and that certainly more and more people are starting to look up and say, "Hey, was that me? Was that, you know, funny remark meant to be something else?"
Oh, wow!
It's really become much more of our day in terms of phone calls.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I've been, going back 30 years, we did sexual harassment training, and there was all this concern, and it blew up. And then now it seems like what I've seen is, especially when you turn on with the internet, right? There's a lot of vulgarity. There's a lot of foul language. There's a lot of stuff that's sort of out there in mainstream, and especially in podcasting. And then when you get into the workplace, everybody has to change and tighten it up. Is that really the way? I mean, how do we as podcasters who drop F-bombs, right? I don't. I'm one of those ones that doesn't use the Lord's name in vain. I don't, try not to cuss. I kind of think of it as if my grandkids can't hear it, maybe I shouldn't be saying it. But that's not the way of the world. How do we be rowdy on the outside, and then we come into work and we have to be so controlled?
Well, I find that it is different, and I think because people are so much more free with their language, particularly a generation different than mine. So, as baby boomers, I came out of a generation where you did have a different personality, or at least what you said at work was different than what you said outside of work. And now, particularly for a younger generation coming in, particularly people who haven't worked a lot, they have some challenges to understand that there is a line you cross. Right. In some work cultures, that's not a big deal. In other work cultures, you can get in a lot of trouble. But I think people see, particularly on movies and social media, the casualness of a touch, a comment, the language, and they don't get that. And then they end up with a big challenge or end up in an investigation about sexual harassment claims.
Are people more litigious today because of some of the high-profile cases of sexual harassment?
Oh, my God, yes.
I guess that's the Me Too movement.
Yeah, I don't think that's only it.
Okay.
But I find, particularly in California, that employees know as much and sometimes more than their managers do about their rights. This is a state that has many layers of employment law, many of those layers protecting the employee. And somebody always has a brother-in-law who's an attorney who says, "Hey, I think you should go check this out. I think, you could probably have a class action here," and seeds are planted. So people just talk about it more, certainly with social media. The word gets around more, and then they're not just talking to their current employee friends, they're talking to past employees, and it can blow up pretty quickly now, much more quickly than it used to.
Amazing. And you just think that we're outside, it's tough to switch gears. And now, thinking of like sexual harassment, now people have to be bothered before it's an actual incident. Is that right? How do we know where's the line between it actually being sexual harassment and just being, Mark trying to be funny?
Well, that's a great question. And the answer will be different depending on every situation. It's really based on the perception of the receiver. So I think I'm pretty cute and funny, and I make comments because I somebody else said the same thing and everybody else was okay with that, but you're not. And all of a sudden I've crossed that line. And, we do lots of what we call respect in the workplace training. And we use a gangplank to say, this differs for every single person, but, you stay on the good ship appropriate, you're fine. You step out on that gangplank and you keep getting more and more flirtatious to the point where it's raunchy, and you step so far out, you're going to fall into the ocean. So for everybody, that's a little different in terms of how long that gangplank is, but it's really a walk of caution these days.
Well, it's amazing because you want to create an upbeat, fun morale atmosphere, a culture, if you will, that makes everybody want to come to work. And yet you are handcuffed. Now, let's talk about Silver's HR. You are in the business of helping employers to navigate these waters. Right. What do you guys do?
So we do a lot of, the employer calls us. Our clients are all on a retainer with us. And the employer says, look, I've got this employee who isn't performing, is performing badly, just tripped over a curb, is pregnant, whatever. And so we'll help coach them through that situation. We're not attorneys, so we take a conservative route because I can't do anything for you if you go to court. Right. But certainly our job is to keep our clients out of court and to minimize their risk and give them options to say, here's different ways you could approach this. Here's what we recommend as the least risky way to approach this employee so you probably won't get sued. And, 95% of the time, the client follows what we recommend. They don't get sued. Our clients don't go to court very often if they do, if we're lockstep.
Do you typically help an HR manager, or is it typically somebody who might be like an office manager or an entrepreneur who is playing human resources manager, him or herself?
I'd say it's probably 60, 70% are business owners or managers, line managers, who need the help. They're not HR nerds. Mm-hmm. They're in the business to grow the business and do the operational part, and so we'll help coach them. That when we talk to HR managers, it's more so about compliance issues. We're doing management training. We're helping them with compensation plan design. So we're doing more nerdly work with the HR manager.
So we bring you on to help our business before we have a problem. And then invariably there are issues that crop up, and then you help us through the issues.
That's a great bumper sticker, Mark. I should use that. Yes, that's exactly what we do.
Well, but what I want to know is, when did you decide, okay, I always wanted to be the guy that threw parties, and I've been doing it my whole life. When did you decide you want to be an HR nerd? Do you love HR? Do you love the product you sell?
I love what I do.
Okay.
I love the stories. I love that what we do cuts across all parts of the organization. I could write a book, but I will guarantee you that Sue Ann Vander Meiden up next will write a better book. And so, I've been doing this for many decades, and it's just a hoot. I love it.
I can only imagine. My wife was the HR director for the city of Roseville for several years, as you know, but she was also risk management. So often it's combined, and so you're trying to protect the organization and the assets, but at the same time, you, as an HR manager, you are trying to make it a fun workplace, right? You sort of wear a few different hats there, when it used to be just like throwing the company party and all the morale stuff. But yet then you've also got to put on your legal hat, if you will, the risk management hat.
You do, and it certainly gets more and more difficult to do that. I certainly think with recreational marijuana becoming legal here in California, the company parties will get more and more interesting.
So if I have a company party, it's okay to my employees can smoke pot during the party, and I can't do anything about it?
That's your call, Mark.
Oh, wow.
I don't recommend you do that and put them in a car. But it's the same thing as serving alcohol now. And I think, we had lots of calls from clients when recreational marijuana became legal on January 1st, or to sell it. And it's the same thing. Somebody shows up, they're not fit for work. Yeah. You look at what's their behavior and you address that behavior. It's the same thing as if they came in and they reeked of alcohol, or, they had powder under their nose.
So
we're going to address that.
Okay, so we have a construction company, and there's a lot of heavy equipment, and we drug test. So if they're caught for use of cannabis, I suppose, I can use that for hiring them? Can I use that information for not hiring them?
Yes, certainly.
Okay.
You can do a pre-employment drug test.
Okay.
It has to be contingent with the offer, contingent on passing the drug test.
Okay.
But absolutely, you can do that and say, and probably the bigger issue is, oh, this is medical marijuana, and I'm
Okay.
using this for some sort of pain control. Still not legal under the federal law, and so there was a big court case in California many years ago with Raging Wire, and the court said, look, an employer can still deny the use of medical marijuana in the workplace.
Okay, wow, as it's amazing how many things there are that we have to do to protect ourselves. And I always think, focus on what we're good at, focus on hopefully growing our company, and outsource to people who are experts in the field. Because here I am, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm sort of guessing at these laws. But I can rely on someone like Kim Silvers to sort of hold my hand, walk me through the difficult parts, the stuff that's not that fun sometimes.
I would love to keep you out of jail, Mark.
Well, so far, so good. I want to thank you, Kim, for what you do for the entrepreneurial community, for sharing the stories. We talked about sex a little bit. We talked about drugs a little bit. Maybe we can talk about rock and roll after the show. Thanks again for everything. And you have recommended that we bring on our next guest, who you work closely with, from what I understand, Sue-Ann Vandermeiden, the founding partner of Vandermeiden Maddox Law Corporation. Join the revolution of HaneyBiz.com, courtesy of Audi Rockland. This is the HaneyBiz Project.